all. Sorry for the late start. My computer decided I absolutely needed Microsoft Edge to be installed and take over as many of my browser settings as possible. So I had to sit through that and then turn basically everything off that it had just turned on. Fun. Anyway, back here on the bench. I'm not sure if today's going to be a full day or not, but because I have no lack of projects, but I'm not sure I have all the motivation in the world. But we are going to work on some stuff today. The thing that has happened today that I think is particularly cool, I've been doing more 3D printing work, and I've started doing a lot of design work, and if it would focus, come on. Anyway, now you can see it well enough, except when it does that, it's even worse. So this is, I needed a new front bumper for this truck that I did all the weathering on last time, because the bumper that came with it sits here, which means that it sits actually below the grill, like the grill sticks out more than the bumper and just looks terrible. So I wanted this to have a different bumper that stuck out properly, because this is just, it's also just not a good bumper to begin with. Like, I could have spaced it out if it looked decent, but it looks terrible. So that was crap. So I decided to design something, and this was my, so this is all 3D, this is designed in Tinkercad, which is an okay program for free. Made some measurements and designed up this bumper as my first try, which I was very proud of, and then I went to fit it to the truck, and the spacing is wrong, and it half covers the lights, and it sticks up way above the hood. So I went back in, and this was design number 2, which fixed the spacing problem. Around the lights, it's going to sit up a little higher, just a little bit higher in its final version, and is the right height for the bumper. Added some fog lamps, added some recovery hook points. I'm very, very happy with this. I'm like over the moon, because I went basically in under a week. I've gone from I've never done any 3D modeling, I have no idea how this works, it's all a little weird and scary, to I'm going to build a bumper for my truck and have it actually work right on the second try. So yeah, I am super jazzed, and now I get to modify it so it fits on the truck, because there were some aspects of this I couldn't. Where's my little, oh boy, how do I lose stuff this thoroughly in this much space? Sorry, I should have 2 round burr end mill things, but I don't. Oh, there's one. I think it's going to be too big, so I think it's not going to work anyway. Yeah, that's not going to work anyway. So here's the thing about getting this to fit is, and I doubt this will pick it up well. Alright, I guess it will. I'm amazed. So this is the frame rail that stays still. This thin thing here next to the frame rail is the part of the hood that pivots with the hood. And this sticking out over here, this wire, is the pin that holds it all together, which is attached to the frame and not the hood, so it doesn't pivot with the hood. What I need to do is come in here and cut this pin flush and this pin flush, and then possibly tweak that a little bit, because what I'm going to be doing is gluing the bumper to the hood supports and not the frame, because this style of bumper on a real truck would have its own, let's try something else first, let's not start with that, would have its own pivot point. And what it would do is it would sort of pivot out of the way, and then the hood could be opened. But I don't have enough space to do that, so the cheaty way to do it is to just have it pivot with the hood, because there's no way, even if I didn't have the superstructure on it, that it would work without doing what I'm doing, because the whole reason that other bumper sat so far back was to allow this hood to pivot past it. So now, in theory, this will fit. Yep, see that slides on, and I got the fit right enough that it's actually holding itself on with friction alone. But now the bumper's actually up a little too high. Oh, I found another error. I found another thing I got wrong. This should be up higher. I trimmed off vertically here because the bumper was too thick, but I shouldn't have. This should have been trimmed off, but then these should have stuck back up again. Because now when I slide the bumper on, it's too high. It should be down here. And it also sticks out just a little too far. I think, though, that those two might become a fixable problem, because I might be able to slice the entire bumper across here and tweak it. I don't know if that'll work or not, because it depends on whether this is hollow inside. I can't remember if I hollowed it out when I printed it. If I hollowed it out when I printed it, it means there's probably resin stuck in there. Uncured resin, which would be a whole separate problem. Yeah, there's no way to make that. If I fit that here, which is where the mounts fit, the whole thing is clearly up way too high. You know, like this is back up where, you know, the other one was height-wise at the correct height. The headlight ones are a little better centered, but that's not a main thing that I was concerned about. But the sides are clearly up way too high. What I need to do is have it down about there and in a bit. So I think I'm going to cut it flush to the bumper there. Take this piece off, and then between the amount of material I lose by cutting it and then also the ability to move it, that should fix my problem. Though now I'm thinking about, I had somewhere, I just saw it while I was digging. I thought I had a different cutting disc thing. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to use this one, because while losing some material would be good, I just remembered how much dust this thing throws out. And that's no bueno. The 3D resin, and I haven't done it with this style of resin. This is supposed to be an ABS-like resin, but 3D printing resin in general produces, when dremeled, a ridiculous amount of some really unpleasant dust. I don't know how bad it actually is for you because it's cured resin, but it's just unpleasant. So we're going to use this actual saw blade with actual saw blade teeth to try and cut it. Okay, I don't know what this is designed to cut, but it's terrible at this. It flexes. It almost seems like it's somehow finding a path of least resistance, and even though it's a homogeneous material. because the cuts don't stay straight. They just kind of wander off. But there you can see that. Oh yeah, this... I will say this is just as dusty, but the dust doesn't have that sickly sweet taste that always makes me nervous. So, growing up repairing and modifying cars, the sickly sweet taste of antifreeze you very thoroughly and quickly associate with, this is poisonous and will kill you. Like, very, very poisonous and very, very good at killing you. Like, yes, oil will probably fuck you up too, but antifreeze is actively a poison. And it has made me now, whenever I encounter something that has a sort of that treacly sweet taste, have a sort of instant adverse reaction to it. So that's too close. That's about right. Oh, I forgot to put the music on. I even booted Pretzel up, but never turned it on. Chill, holiday, mixed, happy, EDM, hype. Happy. Let's play happy. There's two little points on the frame here I need to trim. That's better. Now what I'm trying to decide is whether that's trimmed back enough and good there, or whether I want to trim it back further. And I think that's good. I think we're going to leave it there. That's what I'm going to do. Get some glue. Now that's set up instantaneously, which was not what I wanted. I actually wanted a moment of work time. Yeah, there was some dust in here, and the dust set up instantaneously. nice thing too is this fix is actually fixing a secondary problem I had with this bumper that I was thinking was more of a design problem than anything, which was I didn't like that the plane of the bottom continued onto the mount, but I incorrectly thought that that was where the mount needed to be to mount. But now that I know that that's not the case and it needs to be up here, problem solved. So I'm going to just sort of fill this gap with Zappa Gap. Zappa Gap is more than just a brand name. It's literally a CA glue super glue. It is a super glue designed not just for adhering, but for also filling gaps, filling holes. So that will dry. I'm going to set that aside so it has a chance to dry. And then we'll paint that up, and then we'll mount that to the truck. The other thing that I printed, which is more just for curiosity's sake, I mean as far as showing you folks, is this little dumpster. Which, part of it, the main dumpster body, somebody else built. I 100% credit where credit's due, someone else did it, except I can't remember who, so I can't give proper credit. The little sides I had to build, this is actually version 2, because version 1, well, 1 I forgot, I put this on this side, but forgot to include it in the thing I exported for the model. This was sized to a very specific size to fit this green light dump truck, or trash truck. And even though I did a bunch of measuring and thought I had it right, this doesn't fit in there. I think what I ended up doing was making the outside here the dimension I intended to make the inside. So this is version 2, which has it on both sides, and I spaced these out so they're a little bit bigger. So now this will fit here, and so this truck can now take out the trash. They're higher than they should be, but that's more a function of scale things, I think, than anything else. This, I think, goes lower than it should in the real world. But yeah, that's a fun little thing that I got to build. I still haven't successfully printed the lids. Version 1 didn't print the little loops at the top, and version 2 only printed one of them and didn't quite print it right. So I'm still tweaking those to work. Once I get some working lids, then I'll print a full version, print up the whole thing and bring it over here and put it together. Screw it. I'm bored. Set up. There. I'm liking this station. This station is fun. Did I seriously throw out my sanding block? Yeah. I think I did. I think I threw out my sanding block. And then threw the trash out. Brilliant me! Because we still have to sand the little bits of the roof on this. Where's my junk? Yeah, this is the junk dumpster. It's now being pressed into service as a sanding block. So one thing I've been very quickly realizing, and I realized this before when I had my other printer, but I was sort of re-remembering it, re-realizing it, about the 3D printer world, is how many people seem to get a 3D printer and it becomes the nail with which they approach, the hammer with which they approach every nail in their life. Just like, because you'll go through the like free prints that people put up, you know, that where they've designed stuff, and the number of things on there that like I just look at what they are and what they're intended to accomplish, and the cost involved in printer time if you're paying somebody to do it, and filament or resin if you're doing it yourself. That just makes no sense. Like, you cannot make the math work. That just astounds me over and over again. Like, you know, big, elaborate, complicated, not complicated, but like, you know, very large, material intensive things, in some cases that are very simple to construct out of other materials, or don't really do something that you can't just purchase commercially for far less. Like, it just seems like I have a 3D printer, I must solve all my problems with 3D printers. The most fascinating one being, I was on a website of prints that had an entire section called upcycling. And what it was 3D prints to allow you to, I hate the term so much, to upcycle things, to take something and that's junk or trash or whatever, and turn it into something usable. And I think upcycling is, you know, because now it's worth more money. Because unfortunately you see it a lot with people fucking up old furniture. But there were several things that turned like plastic water bottles into like you know, one was like a hummingbird feeder, another one was a plant holder stand thing, and like you usually seriously have a plastic water bottle that has maybe a penny or two of plastic in it, and you're using like a few dollars to some cases many dollars of filament to build something to attach that plastic water bottle to avoid you throwing out that plastic water bottle. And it's just like, from a math standpoint that doesn't make sense, and from a materials utilization that doesn't make sense. Like, you're not saving anything. Because what you're just doing is kicking the can of waste down the road a little bit. Because that water bottle's not going to last forever. It's not designed for long-term use as a whatever. And you've just made something with a bunch of plastic that will then eventually end up in a landfill, because you can't actually recycle printer filament in any meaningful way. So that takes care of this. This little box, I think, is done. It has gotten its roof molded in, it's got its flares removed, it's got the hole for the former exhaust pipe filled in. Though I think I want to clean that up a little bit more in there. Oops, sorry. How does this camera keep ending up on top of things? Stay still. I just moved it too. There we go. So I understand very much that what I'm bitching about sounds very much like a "no, I'm not enjoying you, go away." Sounds very much like a, you know, old man yells at clouds kind of thing, which is not invalid. But a thing about me is that I am a late adopter. It's not that I hate technology, but I have to have a clear idea of how it's going to be useful and benefit my life before I'm going to get involved in it. I never buy the first of anything. You know, well, I didn't even have a cell phone until 2018, but not a cell phone, a smartphone. But like, the new iPhone comes out. I'm not going to be one of those people who are going to wait in line for it. The new game console comes out. I'm not going to be there on opening day because I want to know if it's any good before I spend my money on it. I've only recently gotten into 3D printing. And my previous printer I bought with the understanding of it's very capable, but it's not user-friendly. And so that was useful data. If I'd gone into that just thinking, oh, hey, this is going to be a great printer, I would have been so upset and angry and frustrated and pissed off and felt cheated and scammed and whatnot. But going into it knowing, hey, you can get good results out of this, but if you're new to this, you're going to be fighting and arguing with this thing. I'm going to turn the audio down just a little bit here. Knowing what I was in for, let me prepare for that. And then it didn't make me not frustrated when it wasn't working right. Sorry, this one song just seems really loud to me at least. Oh, you know what? No, we'll turn it back up to where it was for you guys. And then I will turn my audio down a bit. That seems to... yeah. I forget that the way it's outputting the music is a little weird. And like this printer that I have now came out relatively recently. And when it first came out, I was super excited about it. So I bookmarked it to go read the reviews in, a month or two to see what people were saying. And the reviews continue to be positive, and people continue to say good things about it, and new people continue to post new reviews that said, hey, this thing's really great. At which point I was like, oh, okay. And then at that point I went and looked at some professional reviews as well to see people who knew what the heck they were talking about, theoretically at least, how they felt about it, in particular in comparison to other printers out there. And it scored well in that regard, at which point I knew, okay, this looks like it's what I need and want. And it, by the way, my resin printer is an Elegoo Mars, and my 3D filament printer is a Monoprice Delta Mini. And the Elegoo Mars I can without reservation recommend. It's been printing amazingly well right out of the box. I've had a few problems that were clearly user error. I've had a few little weird things. I've not regularly, but occasionally I will have some bed adhesion issues, which I suspect are actually user error of like not cleaning the platen or whatever the heck it's called off properly. I do kind of turn around things if I'm in a mood, like if I've got something I want to print and I've got or whatever, and then while I have that printing I will sometimes go start working on something else, and then by the time the first thing's done, that second thing I'm ready to print, and so I'm just like, okay, pull this off, reset it, do another thing, and those second prints seem to be where I'm much more likely to have technical issues. So, this is now done and ready for paint. I don't have the right paint down here because this is going to get done in rusty metal primer to start with. It also needs to be very thoroughly scrubbed because, like, yeah, see, there's just sanding dust sort of embedded in all the cracks of it. But that's done, and the hearse gasser here looks like I've fixed where I screwed up the hood, so that's ready for paint. Also don't have the paint for that down here. should be dry, and the stuff I sprayed on it should be dry. Yes. Okay. So. I do not have flat black down here, so we're going to have to do everything through brushes. Too big. What the heck are you popping up? Alright. I apologize in advance if I disappear, because now my computer is forcibly checking for drivers. So who knows what the heck it thinks it's doing and whether it's going to reboot itself again. And when I say forcibly checking for drivers, I mean it brought the program up itself and started telling me it was doing service and checking for drivers. And I don't even know why the F the Dell Service Assist is running, let alone why the heck it thinks I need drivers right now. Now got a base of flat black on it. So this is something that I was poking around at off stream. This is these are Racing Champions. It's an older truck. It was a Outdoor Life magazine tie-in truck. It's god-awful buck tracker stuff, but I was playing around with it, and turns out pretty much all that'll come off with only some minor issues to the paint. So what I'm going to do is do my best to get all this god-awful stuff off and just leave this green, and then weather the green and end up with a nice little old truck. I bought it for the wheels, so I don't have a lot invested in it, literally and figuratively. But I figured if I can make it look nice, I'll either let it keep its own wheels, or these wheels will go off to some other project, and then this will hang around with no wheels until I find the right set of wheels for it. I do that a lot. I end up with like musical wheels kind of thing, where something gives up its wheels for the car that needs those wheels, and then it just kind of hangs around until I find the right wheels to then pass on to it. But yeah, you can see this is all just tampos on top of the green. Thing is, it's several layers of them for the different colors, so it's not, doesn't come off consistently. Which is, normally I wouldn't keep using such dirty Q-tips, but what I'm trying to do is burn through all those layers with one Q-tip and just get down so that what's left is one smeared layer of thinner stuff with maybe some little detail bits that need to be dealt with, rather than having to, using a brand new Q-tip, scrub through those multiple layers only to then have that Q-tip used up to actually remove any paint. That grossness can go away. And then I'll go in with a brand new Q-tip, and like say this bed here, very much scrub in one direction. Doing a little bit of back and forth, but that's just where I'm seeing that the paint still hasn't come up. But my attempts to actually remove it all go in one dimension so that it ends up overall cleaner. Brain, finish the statements. So much paint. Such thick tampo paints on it. The last... I had another one of the trucks from this Outdoor Life series, because I keep finding them at the flea market. Brand new in package that people are selling for like nothing. And I think it's because they're an old series. I don't even know if the Outdoor Life magazine's still around. Don't really care either, but they're all bloody awful. They're all these just overdone, you know, like the other one I think had big ducks all over it. And there's a weird, very specific style of art of mallard ducks that seems to only be popular with people who hunt them. It's a weird sort of hyper-realistic style that I have really only significantly encountered in art and tchotchkes and whatnot aimed at duck hunters. Which is just such a weird little niche-y thing that once I sort of noticed that and realized it, I couldn't not realize, oh, that's... I'm not even like rabidly anti-hunting, but it's like, oh, yep, that's art for people who shoot at that animal. Which just makes it unpleasantly weird. But the other truck, the duck Tampa, it was also like a lime, not quite lime green, but a really unpleasantly vibrant shade of green. You know, like this one at least has a sort of core color that's just a old truck green. You know, it's maybe a little more olive drab than I would be fond of, but it's the kind of thing you can totally just imagine either came from the factory that way or somebody many years ago painted it that color. Burning through Q-tips on this one. But that one was, yeah, this unpleasant lime green to the point where I just stripped the entire truck down to bare metal and repainted it. I think I just repainted it white because it was just unsalvageably ugly. It's a pretty nice cast though. It was a Ford dually pickup truck. And this one's particularly weird because this brown color that I'm currently trying to scrub off the front, based on the splatter pattern on the side of it, clearly was some attempt to be like, look, it's a buck tracker. It's been out in the woods in the mud trying to track down deer. And that's just such a weird thing to me. Like, as I said, I'm not really rabidly anti-hunting, but it's one of those things that I think bothers me the most because, one, it ties into gun culture, and I've just got issues with gun culture. But also, like, it's a heavy it's a rationalization heavy hobby. You know, bringing home meat to feed my family, or doing this because it's tradition, my daddy and I used to do it, or, you know, I do this to show how manly I am, or all these other things, you know, that somehow it proves something about me as a human. And I just find, like, 99% of the time the food one is disingenuous because the amount of money people are spending on the guns and all the other gear and whatnot would buy a hell of a lot more. I mean, even if we want venison, it's like you could probably get farm-raised venison for significantly less than you're spending. So you're not doing this to, like, help feed your family. You're doing this because you want to, and it incidentally provides some meat for your family. You know, like my old station wagon. I paid $500 for it, you know, and I've been working on it. And I could try and claim, like, oh, you know, I work on this car to save money and provide transportation for my family. But it's like, nah, I would have been better served spending more money at the purchase end on a newer vehicle, because while it's been fairly reliable, especially for a $500 car, it's not the means, that's not the reason I bought it, and that's not a good means to that end. It's in fact a terrible means to that end. And then I do this because, you know, I did it with my daddy. I have sympathy for, but also, like, life unexamined kind of. problem there, especially because that same argument gets used for so many problematic things. You know, that's the crux of the bullshit. Southern pride around all these like statues and whatnot. You know, oh, this is my heritage. It's like, well, have you imagined that have you ever stopped to think that your heritage is kind of shitty? And maybe you should move on with your life to something less shitty? Yeah, the wheels have only ever been painted. Oh, the subject of green, that color green that the steering wheel is, that's the color the other truck was. So we're going to need to fix that. I forgot this thing. So now, it's nice. It's still got little tiny bits of the sort of slightly tannish mix of everything in the cracks and whatnot, and I've taken a little bit of the paint off here and there. But I wasn't trying to do a perfect job. Like, I wasn't trying to make this truck perfect and shiny new by pulling that paint off. What I wanted was to get back to just a truck that I could work from. So we're going to start reassembling this after I paint that god-awful steering wheel. And then we're going to start weathering this. The lime green go. Why? This part is, this isn't even molded in lime green. This is painted in lime green. So they took an extra step in the building process and an extra expense to be like, yeah, vintage truck, Hunters, lime green steering wheel. Yep, clearly. Yeah, I'm going to do the the very bottom of the engine compartment's going to get a coat of flat black. Just because it'll help hide that it's a tray rather than an opening. It doesn't have a radiator in it. Just gonna sort of define a radiator space. And wheel wells, because those shouldn't be green either. Little stuff like this, like just painting the inside of the wheel wells flat black so that they vanish and your eye doesn't even notice them, instead of the green that will catch your eye. Little stuff like that can be surprisingly effective at making things look nicer than they are. I've already got paint on this brush. Close that up. Make a bit of a black wash out of the black paint that's already on this brush. Grab some tongs. Grab the back because that won't be visible once it's in. We're just going to give this engine a black wash. Which will both simultaneously pick out the details and make it look less shiny new. We're going to come back in and do some more grinding up of it, but that'll just be a good first pass. Same thing. What was I going to? Oh, the front grille, that's right. I just had a half a second brain short circuit because I was looking over at my jar that my mineral spirits is in, and it's some, I think it's roasted red pepper, but it says on the jar gluten-free, which is true both of roasted red peppers and, for that matter, of mineral spirits. But it's deeply weird as a thing for mineral spirits. But for just that brief moment, my brain forgot, hey, you used a jar from something else. And it was just like, why do you have gluten-free mineral spirits? Why would you advertise gluten-free? I just kind of could not cope with that concept. I nearly put the hood in, the whole thing together without putting the hood in, so now I'm slightly paranoidly figuring out the assembly order. I strongly suspect that this truck will at some point end up lowered, but these are, I'm not actually a big fan of this era of Ford. They're kind of ugly, especially compared to their predecessors. Ford was ugly in the late 90s, or the late 50s and early 60s. Ford spent a lot of the late 50s and early 60s chasing GM to no good effect. Because they weren't GM, they were never going to be GM. They didn't have GM's, you know, they didn't have Harley Earl, they didn't have the stylists that GM had that were making GMs look so amazing. And I feel like the chasing kept them from developing their own. Brain wants to say voice, but look is the look is the word that is more accurate. And when they did, a lot of it was just design for design's sake rather than actual good design. If I keep doing this stream, sooner or later this stream will just become 2 hours of old man yells at clouds. The best part is it's rarely in my day, it's usually like, when it comes to the stuff at the diecast, yeah, 30 or 40 years before I was born, a company that I have no connection to and doesn't know or care that I exist made a decision I'm not happy with. But boy, am I going to tell you about it. Even though, at this point, it doesn't affect my life in any way. I'm at least self-aware about the fact that I'm going to be a grumpy old man yelling at clouds. Alright, so the little truck is back together, looking much better. But now it looks bland, because it's just this weird off-green shade. So this now needs to get some wear and tear, though I think I'm going to let it sit for just a little bit longer to let all the glue dry out. But this, yes, this is now dry. And so I'm going to go in here, grab one of my tapes. this needs to be a thinner tape. I feel like I had another roll that was between these two. Sort of. So what I'm doing right now is laying down some striping that I'm then going to dry brush in very, very poorly on purpose. Some yellow to look like, well, like, you know, sometime in the 70s when this truck was new or newish, or maybe in the 80s when it went on to its second, less glamorous and more heavy-duty job. This bumper got marked with some warning tape to just sort of make it more visible, but that's chipped off a bunch over the years. And the way I tend to do this, when I want, the best way to do evenly spaced stripes is to just literally do this. Lay down a layer, a row of tape, lay another row of tape next to it, lay another row of tape, and then you can come back in and remove, oops, which way do I want to do this? No, I need one more on that side. And then you remove the ones where you want the stripe. And the great part is, if you're careful about it, you can then reuse that tape. Oh, I don't think I pointed this out, and I don't know if it's going to show because I was having so much trouble with the camera. But, come on. So I'm trying to get it to focus on something. There we go. I'm really proud of, right in the center between, basically the V of those pieces of tape, those two notches in the flat part of the bumper are toe spots. And inside them you could just barely make out a little cylinder. So there's actually a toe pin in there that if this vehicle was being towed, somebody could come through and hook a hook around that in order to tow it, which is exactly what those would be for on a bumper.
one on the end here. I'm just going to fudge that. Looks close enough. That didn't go as smoothly as I wanted. All right. That did not go as cleanly as I wanted. But the basic idea is there. Just going to need some touching up here and there. Mostly what I'm trying to do is remove excessively thick overdrips of the yellow. So I'm going to come back in with the flat black and touch up, but if there's a big drip, and then I put more paint on top of it, it's going to still be kind of visible there. But that's basically what I wanted right there. Yeah, you know, if you hold the little pieces of tape that have yellow on them, shock sucks. You'll get some yellow on your finger, and then you'll transfer it elsewhere. One of these days I'll figure out how this stuff works. Okay. Flat aluminum. So, I'm stupidly proud of myself for this bumper. And that's a euphemism. I don't mean that as in it's stupid to be proud. I'm just saying like excessively proud. Because I did it all from scratch. Up until I built this bumper, everything else that every other 3D model that I'd done was a tweaking or a modification or a significant addition to something else, which is not, like, I'm not dissing on myself for that, because that's still, you know, that takes skill. But longer term, I want to sell some 3D models to offset costs, and so I want to build stuff from scratch. So in some cases, I'm basically going to rebuild something I already have, like the palette that I have. I'm basically planning to rebuild that palette from scratch, because then it will be mine. I'm going to use the dimensions of a standard palette. I'm going to build it all out. I'm not even going to like measure the one that I have that's already a 3D model and build that. I'm going to do the measurements, figure it out, make one, so that I can say this is the palette I built. I can sell copies of this completely guilt-free, knowing that I'm selling my thing and not profiting off of somebody else's thing. So this bumper meant a lot in terms of that, because the fact that I could build something like this completely from scratch gave me a lot of confidence that I will be able to do that with other things. So I'm now going to attach it. No, I'm not, because I want to put rest on the back of it. I have to wait for that to dry, so don't want to start on this because I need the rust paint. What? Is there anything else we can start on? trying to decide if I want to rust up this truck or not. Because I keep looking. I bought these like 4 tow trucks. And I keep kind of moving parts around on them and whatnot, trying to, like, this isn't the original front that was on this tow truck. Because I also have this one. And I think I only have... Yeah. I don't have another good... Because I have this wrecker body, but it's obviously bright yellow. So it's a very limited use. Because, I mean, I could take it apart, but it's going to be a hell of a job. Because all the plastic parts have been heat gunned in place, basically. To make that a wrecker. Oh, excuse me. Yawning. And I like this one, but I don't know if I like it more like this or if I like it more all rusty and beat up. So I'm just literally like looking at the stuff on the table and being like, what can I work on right now? And nothing is leaping out as the look, work on me project. Oh, that's basically dry. Okay. It's a, I forgot, it's gloss yellow. So it's gonna stay shiny. That is not a sign that it is still wet. Oh, that's the wrong one. That's the semi-gloss. So where did I put the black? Oh, put it over there for some reason. Thank you, brain, for just randomly. So a truck that's lived the kind of life this truck has lived, in my head, is at that point where it's not even so much that this bumper has gotten the shit beaten out of it, it's that the last time anybody bothered to put a coat of paint on it was so long ago that every little ding and scratch and nick it's ever gotten has now started to rust. So the whole thing is just lousy with surface rust because all those little bits of rust have had a chance to fester, basically. And like I'm paying particular attention to like the center of the bar here. The top is going to have more rust because they're going to grab that when they're pulling the bumper down. The corners and the side plates are more likely to get dinged up against something. Same with the corners of these end tubes here. And of course the camera's not going to show worth a dang. Focus. Fuck. What if I bump up these
But yeah, it just washes it out. But oh, I guess you'll have to look at it in Instagram later. I'm being very careful not to put rust on the cab, the sleeper box, or the hood on this because none of those are steel on the actual truck. So they will not rust. The cab is aluminum. It does not corrode in any meaningful way. The hood is same with the box, I believe. I'm like 99% sure the box is on these. Judging by how it's riveted together, I'm going to say it's also aluminum. And the hoods are fiberglass. And the fiberglass gets weak and brittle, but doesn't rot. Now, fit that bumper. Oh, yes, yes, yes. That looks exactly like I wanted it to. Hell yeah. The fact that it doesn't quite sit level is almost a plus. Still really unhappy with the tires on this thing. Yeah, so that, I'm really happy with that. Focus, you fuck. It looks exactly like what I wanted it to do, which is some older beat up truck, but tough as nails. It's probably still doing its job, still doing a hell of a job at it. And the hood still works. And only now we'll only go that far before the bumper hits the ground, but I don't care. That's far enough. I'm jazzed as hell about that. That is everything I had hoped it would be, and had no reason to expect on my first go round I could manage. Tiniest bit of additional glue in here. Try and help hold that together because that it's not the strongest of joints. That's cool. That came out great. I am so happy about that. Except, really hate those tires. So we farted around with this some last time, trying to see if we could figure out a solution. And found that it might work. So we're gonna make it work, god damn it. Hurdle tires are trash. I hate those. Those are only here for post-apocalyptic use. Yeah, these are almost exactly the same size. The thing is, I remember, yeah, the biggest problem was in the front. These didn't fit over the shape of the wheels. Well, let me see if they fit in the back.
No, they don't. Okay. It will live with the tire it's got on it, at least for the time being, because those do not fit. Do I have a DCP I hate enough? I'll be right back. So DCP trucks are stupidly expensive in general. Sometimes you can get some like 10, 20-year-old ones with weird trucking companies or for specific things. Because DCP is diecast promotions. These are generally made to promote a trucking company. But you get these weird trucks for, you know, that one truck show or whatever. And sometimes you can go to your local friendly neighborhood diecast shop and they can have a pile of them they're desperate to get rid of because nobody wants them. And you can... Ah, those fit. And you can get... 5 DCP trucks that probably sold for somewhere between $80 and $100 new for $100 for all 5 of them. At which point suddenly using them as part donors is a lot less painful. Haha, yes! Oh, that improves the look of it so much. Yeah, these look stupid. These look right and to scale and all that other important stuff. Yeah, we're going to strip you blind. Whoop. You're also going to give up your hose connections too, I think. And your 5th wheel plate's apparently just going to pop off. Old tire, old tire, old tire, old tire, new tires. Put that 5th wheel plate back on so I don't lose it. And yes, I just knocked that side mirror off again. What I probably could have done, if I really wanted to, was just use the DCP Nicer Tires outboard, like just use it on the 3 outer tires, and nobody probably would have ever noticed. But at this point I have a sort of like personal vendetta against these tires, just because of how much they bring down the look of this truck. With a side note of, because I didn't realize how much they brought down the look of the truck when I bought the truck. Did I just put one of the cheapy tires on? I just put one of the... No wonder you wouldn't stretch worth a darn. You're one of these. You sneaky little bugger. I just fought like hell to get on? Yeah, that needs to come back off. So another thing I could do is I could put the cheapy tires on the inboard ones and save some, but this is coming out so nicely that now it deserves good tires all around. Every time I'm doing something boring like this, like that even I find dull, but kind of I can't avoid it. I have to do it to get to the next stage. But that I know is dull for me, so has to be dull for you to watch. Oh, that's so much better. They're a little bit shorter than those tires, but I will happily take that because they just look so much better. They're still slightly proud like the other ones were, but the shape is better. It actually is the one side. Nubbin on that tire that I don't like. Nope, that's not coming off. There's a little imperfection in the way the tire was molded that makes it not sit right, but I can do this. Solve that problem. Okay. Once again, we're going to glue this mirror back on. Sorry about that. I was about to make a comment to the effect of how foolish I feel because for ages I've been using these without this extended tip, and apparently the extended tip is the cure for the glue drying up in them, except that it's not. The one thing it is a cure for is that I can do this and
eventually. Oh, that was a fail and a half. I was trying to reach in to grab the little chunk of dried glue, and I instead poked this through the side of here and through the skin of the outermost layer of skin on my finger. So I'm pretty sure that now I do this, the glue is going to come gushing out that hole in the side. Yes. We'll find out how much of a detriment that is soon, I think. Alright, so the last thing this needs is my... Oh, let's put these away before I forget. This will probably become a palletized load or something. My dark brown, here it is. Ah! How did you settle out so fast? I'm going to take that and my brushes here. Making a wash of that, because as with the other truck, all I want to do is basically fill the grooves of the tires with brown so that they're not so brandy new. It's just one of those little things. It's so easy to have a rusted up, dirty, old, grimy thing and then have brand new rubber on it, basically, by virtue of not touching the tires. And the reason I'm using different stuff than usual is, as you may or may not have heard me say before, the enamel paints that I usually use don't dry properly on the rubber. So this is acrylic. From all reports, acrylic's actually a better paint these days than enamels, but I'm stuck in my ways. I don't claim my enamels are better. I claim that they're what I'm stuck in my ways and I use. I even got like made fun of by the older than me guy who runs a local hobby shop. And I mean that in a polite way. Because his comment when because he was they're doing only phone orders, and I asked for such and such, and he asked me what brand, and I said, oh, the testers in the little square jars, and he said, oh, we don't have acrylics in little square jars, we've only got the enamels. And I said, yeah, enamel. And he was just like, you're still using enamels. And I said, yeah, you know, force a habit, blah blah blah, too lazy to and cheap to update. And he said, well, if you're younger than me, you know, mind you, this is all on the phone, so I can't see who I'm talking to. He says, well, if you're younger than me, you're going to have to learn how to use acrylics, because sooner or later that's going to be all that's available. Everybody's going to slowly phase out their enamels. And I said, well, you know, I'm in my 40s, so... And he said, yeah, you're younger than me. Got to switch to acrylics. So at some point I will. But right now, enamels do the exact thing I want them to do, and I know how to work with them, so... Learning a new skill is awesome, but right now I don't want to learn a new skill. I want to do the thing that I'm already doing. I just want the thing I know will get me from point A to point B the fastest. So that's my current rationalization for still using enamels. But this truck is done. That is just came out so freaking amazing. Oh! I never did the fog lamps and the tail lamps. I don't think I did the tail lamps on the other truck at all. Put you away. Grab you. And what I'm just doing is I'm putting, this is stoplight red. I'm doing that on the, over the red that's already there for the taillights, just so that one, they're glossy again because they've been hit with flat. And two, the stoplight red's got a lot of a red metallic in it, so it helps it look more like, you know, the reflective nature of a taillight lens. Alright, that is done. And I'm very, 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 very happy with it. This has been a good couple of streams, got some really cool stuff out the door. So yeah, now that I feel like it's actually done, I'll show you it again. Focus. There we go. So, much like the one from the other time, it's just basically been made to look a little worn and torn. In this case, though, it got upgraded wheels because the other ones were hideous. And then this custom 3D printed front bull bar bumper with that also got weathered. And for those who were watching when I first got this thing, there was a paint error over here. The gray had not been sprayed properly. So to hide that, I basically added some gray of a different shade, like it's been fixed over here and primered, and nobody ever came back and painted over the primer. And I just remembered it's not done. No, maybe it is. No, that's ugly. I was going to use the little hookup tree back here, but it's only got one glad hand and is otherwise a little bit weird, so we're not going to do that. One last thing. There's always one last thing. Feel a little bit like Columbo. Oh, just one more thing. If you've never seen Columbo, it's a good old detective show. It's fun. I don't know how well it's aged over the years, but it was a fun show when I was younger. I liked Columbo a lot. But his shtick, one of his shtick things was he played like the actor didn't play. Columbo the detective, who the actor was playing, very much portrayed himself as sort of a bumbling idiot, like two people. Like he wore this long trench coat that didn't quite fit him right. It was all frumpy. He drove a ratty old Peugeot convertible. Like just generally played the part of somebody who looked like they weren't too bright in order to get people off their guard. And he was very annoying on purpose to people, and he would generally like just annoy people. Sometimes it would get them to say things. But what his sort of famous thing was, what just one last thing, one last question. And then he would either ask them a question and then later it would come out what exactly he already knew when he asked that question, or a lot of times he would ask that one last question. I just realized I scraped paint off of this thing by handling it, so now I have to fix it. He'd ask that one last question, you know, oh, you said blah blah blah, and they'd be like, yes, I did. Or they'd add a little more detail or whatever, and it would come to find out that he actually knew that they were lying because he had some data they didn't realize he had, and that was how he could then prove that they were the murderer or whatever. So, one last thing. Come for the miniature building. Stay for the weird Columbo references. Alright. That is now done again. So I was going to work on this truck some more, but it's 9:50 now. I had no idea things had burned past that quickly. So that's going to be it for today. I'm going to take off now, a little bit early, even though I started a little bit late, because I don't have 10 more minutes of anything to do. So thank you all very much for watching. It's been a fun little day. Finished this truck, and I'm super happy about that. That's 2 amazing builds out in 2 days. And so, yeah. Should be back Tuesday. I have no idea what I'm going to be doing at that point, because I've been wanting to get out in the garage and work on the wagon on stream, but I also have so many projects piled up here, and the 3D printer, I just keep coming up with new ideas. So yeah, we'll find out when Tuesday comes. Thank you all very much for watching. I appreciate, and have a good night.